I was in the kitchen, apron tied tight, the smell of roasted chicken filling every corner of the house. Cooking had always been my way of creating comfort, of keeping our evenings grounded in something familiar. I chopped vegetables with steady hands, humming softly to myself, when I heard Adam walk in. He dropped his keys on the counter with a dull clink, not even glancing my way. That little gesture, so careless, so detached, already told me more than his words were about to. "Hey, I'll be late tonight," he said, his tone so light it could have passed for small talk. He leaned against the fridge, scrolling on his phone like I wasn't even standing there. "Mom invited me for coffee. Nothing big." His eyes never lifted from the screen, and I caught myself staring, wondering why he couldn't look me in the eye. Still, I turned with a smile, spoon in hand, determined to keep things easy. That's always been me, the one patching over the cracks before they spread. "That's nice," I said, stretching the smile a little longer than I felt. "I haven't seen them in a while. Maybe I'll join next time." My voice carried more warmth than my chest did, because deep down, something about his tone stung. Too quick, too rehearsed. "No, don't worry," Adam interrupted, sharper than he meant to. "Tonight's just family time." And there it was, that word, family, spoken like I wasn't part of it at all. I stood there in silence, knife in hand, while doubt whispered its way into my mind. I tried to laugh it off, but his words sat heavy on me, like a stone at the bottom of my chest. Family time? Wasn't I his family too? I stirred the pot a little harder than necessary, pretending not to care, but inside the sting was sharp. Over the years, I'd learned to swallow moments like these, to brush them under the rug for the sake of peace. But sometimes, peace felt more like silence, mine, not his. I glanced at him, hoping for some softening in his face, some sign he realized how dismissive he'd sounded. But Adam was already moving on, loosening his tie, stretching like he'd just thrown out something trivial. The disconnect between us widened in that instant, and it made my heart ache. I wanted to reach out to say, "Do you even see me anymore?" But the words stayed trapped behind my teeth, unspoken, because I already knew the answer. Instead, I put on a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "All right then," I said, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. If he wanted coffee with his parents, he'd have it. But my mind was already racing. What if I showed up anyway, just to surprise him? I imagined walking in with something sweet, something thoughtful. Maybe a pie. Yes, that felt like me, choosing kindness even when I felt cast aside. And maybe, just maybe, he'd see me again. As I stood there finishing dinner, my hands kept moving, but my mind wandered. I thought about his parents, always polite, but never quite warm. I could never shake the feeling that I was being measured against some invisible standard, one I hadn't created and could never meet. Maybe that was why Adam sounded so quick to shut me out. Maybe, in their eyes, I was still the outsider at their table. That thought clung to me like a shadow. I leaned on the counter, looking at the pie dish tucked away in the cupboard. The idea sparked inside me like a small flame. Why not bake one tonight? A golden crust, sweet filling, and a ribbon tied neatly around the dish. It would be my way of showing up, of reminding Adam and his parents that I wasn't going anywhere. Maybe it would even soften whatever invisible distance kept creeping into our marriage. The plan began to form quietly in my mind, steady and certain. I'd surprise him. I'd drive over after dinner, pie in hand, and knock on their door with a smile. The thought of it made my heart race. Half excitement, half unease I couldn't quite name. Something inside whispered this night might not unfold the way I hoped. Still, I held on to the idea, convincing myself that kindness could close the gap. The pie sat warm in the passenger seat, filling the car with a sweet, buttery aroma as I drove through the dimly lit streets. My heart beat faster with every turn, caught between excitement and a faint unease I couldn't shake. When I pulled up to the house, the porch light glowed like a beacon. But then I saw it. Adam's car parked neatly in the driveway. For a moment, I smiled, reassured. At least I know he's here, I thought. This was going to be a sweet surprise. I smoothed down my dress, picked up the pie, and walked up the familiar path. The gravel crunched under my shoes louder than usual, like it was announcing me. At the door, I knocked lightly, expecting the warm, welcoming smile of my mother-in-law. Instead, when Helen opened the door, her face stiffened. Her eyes darted to the pie, then back to me, a flicker of panic slipping through her polite mask. My smile faltered just a little. "Hi," I said brightly, holding out the pie like a peace offering. "I baked this and thought I'd surprise you all. Adam said he was here." My words tumbled out with genuine warmth because this was me, always trying. Helen's hand tightened on the door frame, her body angled just enough to block my way. "Oh, Courtney," she stammered, her voice uneasy. "Tonight's not a good night. Maybe another time." The sting was sharp, sharper than Adam's dismissal earlier. What could possibly make tonight the wrong night? I blinked at her, caught off guard by the hesitation in her voice. "Not a good night?" I repeated, my smile slipping into a frown. "But Adam's car is right there." I tilted my head toward the driveway, as if she hadn't noticed the obvious. Helen's lips curved into a strained smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "He stepped out," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "Really, dear, let's do this another day." The words hit me like a gust of cold air. Stepped out? His car was parked right in front of me, and she expected me to believe he wasn't inside? My chest tightened, suspicion creeping in like smoke through a crack in the wall. I shifted the pie in my hands, searching her face for a crack in the performance. Her eyes flickered, avoiding mine, and in that moment, I knew she was lying. Something inside me hardened. I'd been dismissed by Adam, brushed aside by his tone, but now his mother was standing here, trying to keep me out of a house I'd walked into countless times before. My voice softened, but the edge in it was sharp. "Helen, I don't understand. I just wanted to share something nice. Why won't you let me in?" The silence stretched, and I realized I wasn't going to get an answer that made sense. Helen's hand lingered on the door, her knuckles pale as if she was holding back the entire weight of the house behind her. "It's just not a good time, Courtney," she murmured again, her voice thin, rehearsed. That was it, the final push. I felt the pie growing heavier in my hands, not just dessert anymore, but proof of how hard I'd tried, how far I was willing to go to belong. And here she was, treating me like a stranger at the door. I steadied myself, inhaling slowly, tasting the metallic bite of suspicion on my tongue. Something was happening inside that house, and they didn't want me to see it. That much was clear. My pulse quickened, and my legs seemed to move on their own. I pressed forward gently, my shoulder brushing past Helen's as I stepped inside. Her gasp was soft but sharp, like glass cracking under pressure. "Courtney, wait!" she whispered harshly, but it was too late. The familiar hallway stretched before me, every photo on the wall suddenly feeling foreign. My heels clicked against the floor with quiet determination as I moved toward the kitchen. The air felt thicker, heavier, each step pulling me closer to an answer I wasn't sure I wanted. My chest tightened, but I didn't stop. Whatever they were hiding, I was about to see it with my own eyes. The moment I stepped into the kitchen, the world seemed to stop. There they were, Adam, seated at the table, his hand resting too comfortably near hers. And her, Laura, his ex. She was leaning in close, laughing, her voice sliding through the air like poison wrapped in sugar. My breath caught, my grip tightening on the pie dish until I thought it might shatter. It wasn't just him, it was them, together, sitting there like I didn't even exist. Adam's head jerked up the second he saw me, his face draining of color. "Courtney, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered, his chair scraping loudly against the floor as he jumped to his feet. My heart pounded in my ears, but fury burned hot enough to drown out the shock. "Not what it looks like?" My voice trembled, but each word cut sharp. "Because it looks like my husband is sipping coffee with his ex in his parents' kitchen." Laura smirked, leaning back in her chair with a smugness that made my blood boil. "Relax," she purred, swirling her cup like she belonged there. "It's just coffee. Don't be so dramatic." Her words twisted the knife, as if my pain were nothing but entertainment. I turned toward Adam's parents, hoping, just for a flicker, that they'd defend me. But the coldness in their eyes told me everything. I stared at them, my chest tightening until it felt hard to breathe. "You invited me into this family," I whispered, my voice breaking. "And this is how you repay me?" My mother-in-law's lips pressed into a thin line, her arms folded like she was the judge of a trial I hadn't even known I was on. Beside her, my father-in-law leaned back, his tone chillingly blunt. "We always thought Laura was the better match for our son," he said coldly. "You never really fit in." The words sliced through me deeper than Adam's betrayal. It wasn't just him sneaking behind my back. It was all of them, complicit, smiling as they set the table for my humiliation. My eyes darted back to Adam, searching his face for any trace of guilt, of shame, of love for me. But all I saw was panic, like a boy caught in a lie, too cowardly to own up to it. I felt heat rising to my cheeks, a mix of fury and heartbreak colliding until I could barely tell them apart. Every laugh they had shared, every holiday I had sat through trying to win their approval, it all replayed in my head, tainted now, exposed as part of a cruel performance. My fingers tightened around the edge of the pie dish, steadying myself against the urge to scream. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Not yet. My whole body trembled, but my voice came out steadier than I expected. "So this was the plan all along? To sit here, laughing with her, while I'm at home waiting, thinking you're just having coffee with your parents?" The room fell quiet, except for the faint clink of Laura's spoon against her cup. She smirked, enjoying every second of my unraveling. Adam reached out a hand, but I stepped back before he could touch me. His fingers froze midair, useless. "I gave everything to this marriage," I continued, my throat tight. "Every piece of me. And you all decided I wasn't enough. You plotted this behind my back like I was some obstacle to clear out of the way." My eyes burned, but I refused to let the tears fall here, not in front of them. Not when their eyes were watching, waiting to see me break. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The heartbreak was still there, sharp and raw, but beneath it, a new resolve was forming. Hard, steady, undeniable. If they thought they could push me aside, they didn't know me at all. I straightened my back, forcing my voice into calm, measured tones. "You've made your choice, but don't think for a second I won't make mine." And though they didn't know it yet, that choice would change everything. I turned on Adam, my pulse pounding in my ears. "You lied to me," I said, my voice low but sharp, like a blade pressed against skin. "You looked me in the eye this morning and told me you were coming here for coffee with your parents, just not with her." His mouth opened and closed like he was searching for words that didn't exist. For once, he had nothing rehearsed, no slick excuse to cover his tracks. "They asked me to," he stammered finally, his eyes flicking toward his mother as if begging her to rescue him. "They said it would be harmless." Harmless. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I let out a bitter laugh, one that sounded foreign even to me. "Harmless? Drinking coffee with your ex while your wife bakes you a pie? That's harmless to you?" My voice cracked on the last word, but I held his gaze, refusing to let him see me crumble. From behind him, Helen's voice snapped through the air like a whip. "Courtney, enough. We want what's best for our son. That's not you." The finality in her tone made my stomach twist, but instead of breaking, I felt myself grow colder. I looked at Adam again, searching his face for defiance, for any spark that he might stand up to them, for me. But his silence was the loudest answer I'd ever heard. I felt the sting of Helen's words deep in my chest, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I folded my arms, steadying myself. "So that's it then?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. All these years of me trying, of showing up, of loving him, of respecting this family, and you never once thought I was worthy. My eyes burned, but I locked them on Adam, refusing to let him hide behind their cruelty. "And you let them speak for you. You let them treat me like I was disposable." Adam shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight, his eyes darting between us. "Courtney, it wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered, his voice low, almost ashamed. But shame without action meant nothing. I stepped closer, my heart hammering in my chest. "Then what was it supposed to be, Adam? You thought I'd just stay home, smiling while you played house with your ex in front of your parents. Did you think I'd never find out?" The silence that followed was suffocating, every second heavier than the last. Laura sipped her coffee like it was theater, her smirk widening, enjoying the spectacle. My mother-in-law looked smug, my father-in-law cold, and Adam, my husband, stood there small, cornered, spineless. My humiliation was complete. But in that silence, something else settled into me. Resolve, sharper and calmer than rage. I wasn't going to let this scene be the end of my story. I stood there, surrounded by their judgment, their smugness, their betrayal, and I realized this wasn't a fight I could win with shouting. My voice could never outmatch their lies, their twisted loyalties. But I had something stronger, the truth. And truth, when spoken at the right time, could burn hotter than any rage. I let the silence stretch, my stillness unsettling them more than any outburst could. Adam shifted again, as if waiting for me to lash out, to throw the pie, to scream until my voice broke. But I didn't. Instead, I leveled my gaze at him, cold and unblinking. "You've already chosen, Adam," I said softly, but each word landed with weight. "And now, so will I." His lips parted, panic flickering in his eyes, but I didn't give him the comfort of an answer. Not yet. Inside, the humiliation was still raw, like an open wound, but under it pulsed something steadier, a fire that wasn't going to die down. If they thought they could humiliate me in silence, they were wrong. I wasn't leaving defeated. I was leaving armed with everything I needed to turn this betrayal into their undoing. And when the time came, they'd remember this moment for the rest of their lives. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. Instead, I walked slowly to the table, the pie still in my hands, warm and perfect, everything I had poured myself into that evening. With a calm smile, I set it down in the center of their little gathering. The knife in my chest twisted deeper, but outwardly, I was composed, almost serene. "You want Laura so badly?" I said, my tone cold and measured. "Fine. Keep her. Keep each other." Adam's face crumpled, panic flashing in his eyes. "Courtney, wait. Don't do this." "We can work it out," he pleaded, his voice finally carrying urgency, finally chasing me when it was already too late. His parents watched in silence, their smug victory already painted across their faces. Laura leaned back in her chair, lips curling into a satisfied smirk, like she had finally won the game she'd been playing all along. But what none of them realized, what not one of them suspected, was that I wasn't walking away broken. I was walking away armed. Armed with the truth, with my dignity, and with the knowledge of exactly who they were when the masks slipped. They thought this was the end of me. But deep down, I knew it was the beginning of their unraveling. I straightened my shoulders, my voice steady, almost too calm for the storm inside me. "You and your parents chose her over me, Adam. But don't think this ends here. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth." The color drained from his face, his panic deepening. "Courtney, please," he stammered. Don't drag this out in front of everyone." But the irony of his words nearly made me laugh. He had dragged me here into humiliation. I was simply choosing a stage big enough for the truth. In my mind, the plan was already forming, sharper with every passing second. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, people who thought we were the perfect couple, they'd all know how his parents schemed, how Adam betrayed his vows, how Laura slithered her way back into their good graces. No amount of coffee at that kitchen table would wash away the shame once the world saw what really lived behind their polished smiles. I looked around the room one last time, memorizing the scene. Helen's tight-lipped pride, Robert's cold indifference, Adam's cowardice, Laura's smug triumph. I wanted to burn it into memory, so that later, when they lost everything, I could recall this moment with satisfaction. They thought they had cornered me. They didn't realize they'd just handed me the match to set their carefully built world on fire. I turned toward the door, my heels clicking against the floor, each step louder than their silence. Adam called after me, his voice cracking, but I didn't look back. I wouldn't give him the comfort of my tears or the satisfaction of a second glance. That part of me, the woman who tried, who baked pies, who begged for their approval, was gone. What remained was sharper, colder, unshakable. In the days that followed, I spoke, not in anger, but in truth, to friends, to colleagues, to family. I shared what I saw with my own eyes, Adam laughing with his ex while his parents cheered it on, their plot to erase me from the picture. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations into judgment that spread like wildfire. Adam didn't just lose me, he lost the respect of everyone he had once leaned on. And as for me, I walked away lighter, free of the family that had never deserved me in the first place. One night of betrayal became the story they could never outrun, a stain they'd wear forever. I whispered to myself as I closed that chapter for good. They wanted me out of the picture. Now they'll regret ever pushing me away.